I have wanted to preach a sermon on the problem of physical pain for 34 years, which is as long as I have been ordained. Because I've always known that pain is something that people face on an ongoing basis. And I would try to think and pray about how a person's faith can help them live through it. That was why one of the very first courses I took in seminary was on the subject of chronic pain. But in that class, I remember learning not what to say, but what not to say to its sufferers. And the list was long. Things like, God would not give you more than he thought you could bear. Mother Teresa's comment to that statement was, if this is the way God treats his friends, I would hate to be one of his enemies. So, what can I say? What can one say? My own inexperience hardly qualifies me to even mention the subject. Probably the closest I have come to suffering from ongoing pain was when I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. That pretty much kept me on the couch for a little more than 2 years while I was writing a thesis. Yet I realized that 2 years of bodily weakness and a low-grade fever is nothing in comparison with what some of you have or are enduring right now. At any rate, I couldn't make the nudge to preach on pain go away, so here goes. As I stated in last week's sermon on emotional suffering, the question I am asking is this. We understand that at Easter, Christ's pain was transformed in the resurrection. And so, how can God transform ours? How can God transform our physical pain? We all know what pain looks like when it has not been transformed. Richard Rohr, author of the book Falling Upward, states it simply. Pain that is not transformed gets transmitted. Again, pain that is not transformed gets transmitted. And in projecting their pain outward, people get grumpy. I can use this illustration because Dick's away today. He's on a mission, actually, for our retreat. He went to visit at a church start in Portland, so I'm appreciative of that. But while he's away, I'm going to talk about him. And I just wanted to say that Dick and I are 11 years apart. Don't ask who is older, please. Someone in learning that age difference said to me, you don't look that much older. Well, he would have enjoyed that. But at any rate, while we were in the midst of taking our vows, I was picturing him as a 90-year-old man, and me still in my 70s, albeit 79. But as I pledged my love in sickness and in health, I thought, I'm definitely on for this. But sweetie, don't even think about getting grumpy. Because that just is not going to happen under any circumstances. All of us are familiar with the expression grumpy old men. And I did not want to learn about that syndrome firsthand. Because with grumpiness, and I admit it's both genders, with grumpiness goes the attitude, if I have to suffer, then you should have to suffer too. So there. And that's not nice. So, if we want God to transform our physical pain, let's first think about this. Pain, like fear, is at core a gift, a God-given protective mechanism to help us survive. Who amongst us, if we had the choice, would ever want to risk not having it? Because pain, the presence of pain, can signal that something is wrong. An oncoming appendicitis attack or a fatal heart attack. And how many of us are still here because of the gift of pain? We need pain to stay alive. But today I want to talk about chronic pain that for all practical purposes would seem to signify nothing and refuses to go away. What about that? How can that kind of pain be a gift? As a point of clarification, it needs to be said that pain can only be a gift if we manage it well. First, fear or worry about pain continually needs to be kept in check, or the what-ifs will take over our lives. Earlier this month, Parade magazine featured an article by Michael J. Fox entitled, "I Don't Look at Life as a Battle." It was about his living with Parkinson's. And in the article, his wife, Tracy Poland, made the statement that Michael refuses to worry about pain or the future manifestations of that disease because, in his words, and I love this quote, "There's no point in worrying, because if something bad does happen, then," he said, "you've lived it twice." So, acknowledges Tracy, Michael J. Fox takes each day as it comes. Secondly, if you are in chronic pain, get in the habit of making comparisons, helpful comparisons. And by that, I mean not comparisons with those who are better off, and certainly not with yourself during your better days. But always remember to compare yourself with those who are worse off than you are. As some of you know, David Kerr, who also has been diagnosed with Parkinson's, had a bad fall 2 weeks ago today. And he spent the better part of the morning in the emergency room. Thankfully, he didn't break anything, but he did have a bad sprain on his right knee and looked as though he'd be walker, if not wheelchair dependent, for quite a while. Knowing that he was scheduled to leave for a cruise to Bermuda that next Saturday, I asked him if this most recent fall would put that trip on hold. And he responded as if that idea had never occurred to him. "Oh, no," he said. "We are going to Bermuda. Things could be worse than this." And then thoughtfully he added, "You can complain when you have no shoes until you see someone who has no feet." That is the way to make comparisons. Third, because pain will slow you down and you won't be able to accomplish everything you could before, think of it as an opportunity to reprioritize your life. Choose wisely. Listen to the words of a woman who allowed herself to benefit from her chronic pain. She said, and I quote, "I used to take life for granted. I was hurrying through it like everybody else does, zip here, zip there. Now, every moment matters to me. And I can't imagine using my energy needlessly, especially in anger. I refuse to feel sorry for myself because that would be a waste of time. And I'm not going to squander what time I do have. If I mope around, then I may have thrown that day away, because tomorrow I might not be able to do the things I can today. Yes, I'd like to resume those activities that I can no longer enjoy, but nonetheless, I'm content to know that my life has been a remarkable gift, and even now, I would not trade it for anyone else's. Pretty amazing. And so now back to the original question. How do we allow God to transform our pain? We offer it to him to use as he wishes. In last week's sermon, I said that the key to coping is to remind ourselves as to why God put us here in the first place. And remember that statement from Thomas Merton? Our existence has meaning insofar as it does not become centered upon itself as the ultimate and as the primary reason for being. We were put on this earth as a gift from God for others. So that said, how can it be when we are in constant pain? One time a little girl was suffering from the ramifications of having her tonsils taken out, which, as some of you know, is no picnic. And while she was still on her ice cream and Jell-O diet, she heard about a fellow classmate who had just come home from the hospital having had the same operation. And so she said to her mother, "I want to go over to her house. Would you take me?" And her mother said, "Why? What do you think you could do?" And the girl said, "I could help her cry." Pain can award its sufferers with the gift of compassion. It can also serve as a strengthening agent. Again, another illustration from Mother Teresa's life. Someone who was very seriously crippled went up to her and said, "Oh, Mother, I would have loved to have helped pick up the dying off the streets. I would have loved to work at the home for the dying. But look at me. I can do nothing. I can barely walk. I am in pain all the time." To which Mother Teresa looked at her and said, "Don't you realize how much we need prayer? Everything we are able to do is because someone has prayed to Jesus to make it happen. Please, if you want to help us, join the co-workers and start praying. We need you." The Apostle Paul, in his letter to the Corinthians, his second letter, offers a timely reminder to us all. He says, "Do not lose heart." And then he reminds us that the frailties of the human flesh are one thing, and the triumphs of the human soul are another. While physically we may be going down a pain-fraught path, there is nothing to hold our spirits back from walking to the empowering presence of Jesus Christ. The words of Debbie Lord continue to stay with me. I asked her about how she copes with pain. And her words to me were words I will not forget. She said, "With regards to pain, I refuse to let it get the best of me." In closing, I would like to adapt a favorite poem called "What Cancer Cannot Do" and apply it to physical pain. So I'll call it "What Pain Cannot Do." Pain is limited. Unless you let it, it cannot cripple love. It cannot shatter hope. It cannot corrode faith. It cannot eat away peace. It cannot eat away peace. It cannot destroy confidence. It cannot silence courage, and it cannot quench the Spirit. Thanks be to God. Amen.